Cyber Threat Brief for June 11, 2026. A new Windows zero-day exploit bypassing Microsoft Defender was released hours after Patch Tuesday. While Microsoft ships a record 206 patches, including 3 public zero days and critical remote code execution bugs, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, adds 3 more actively exploited flaws to its KEV. Known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, and attackers are exploiting a path traversal bug in the AI development platform Langflow. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Cybersecurity Brief, June 11, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. New Windows zero-day exploit Rogue Planet released. Security researcher Nightmare Eclipse released another Windows zero-day proof-of-concept exploit called Rogue Planet, targeting a race condition in Microsoft Defender that leads to local privilege escalation to system. The exploit works on fully patched Windows 11 and Windows 10 machines with the June 2026 patches installed, tested on June 10, one day after Patch Tuesday. Multiple security researchers have validated that the exploit can spawn a command prompt with system privileges on patch systems. The researcher states that Windows Server versions are vulnerable, but the current proof of concept does not work on server installations. The exploit was previously capable of remote code execution by tricking victims into opening VHDX files on remote SMB, small and medium business, shares, but Microsoft's May mitigations closed some attack paths, forcing the researcher to rework it. Action: monitor for Microsoft's security response. This is an unpatched zero-day with working public exploit code. Block execution from untrusted sources, monitor for unusual Defender process behavior, and restrict access to VHDX files from network shares. Watch for CVE or common vulnerabilities and exposures, assignment and patch availability. Sources: Security Week. The Register. Great XML zero-day exploit bypasses BitLocker. Nightmare Eclipse released a second zero-day exploit within 24 hours, this one targeting BitLocker. The Great XML exploit allows attackers with physical access to bypass BitLocker encryption and spawn a command prompt with system privileges while in recovery mode. The vulnerability exists in Microsoft Defender's offline scan functionality. Any Windows system on which an offline scan was initiated at least once automatically becomes vulnerable. The exploit requires copying an XML file and a recovery folder to the root of the computer's recovery partition, then rebooting into recovery mode. An attacker who has not previously initiated an offline scan can trigger it before executing the exploit or boot directly into WinRE in offline scan state without logging in. Action: this is an unpatched zero-day affecting BitLocker protected systems where Defender offline scans have been used. Monitor for Microsoft patch. Physical access is required, making this primarily a risk for lost/stolen devices or insider threats. Consider disabling Defender offline scan functionality if not operationally required. Source: Security Week. Microsoft patches Exchange Server zero-day exploited in attacks. CVE 2026-42897. Microsoft patched an actively exploited Exchange Server vulnerability that allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary JavaScript in cross-site scripting attacks targeting Outlook web access users. CVE 2026-42897, CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, 8. XEPSS, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, 7.9%, 92nd percentile, affects Exchange Server 2016, Exchange Server 2019, and Exchange Server Subscription Edition. Exploitation requires sending a specially crafted email to a user who opens it in Outlook web access. Microsoft first released temporary mitigations through the Exchange Emergency Mitigation Service, EAMS, on May 14, and CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, added the vulnerability to its KEV, Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog, on May 15, with a May 29 patching deadline for federal agencies. Microsoft released permanent patches on June 9 and recommends keeping the EAMS mitigations in place for additional defense-in-depth protection. The company has not disclosed who is exploiting the vulnerability or who the targets are. Action: install KB patches from June 2026, Patch Tuesday, for your Exchange version immediately. Leave EAMS mitigations in place, per Microsoft recommendation. Over the past 5 years, CISA has added 20 Exchange vulnerabilities to its KEV catalog, with 14 of them exploited by ransomware gangs. Sources: Bleeping Computer Security Week. CISA adds Cisco, Chrome, and Arista flaws to KEV catalog. CISA added 3 actively exploited vulnerabilities to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog on June 10, with a June 23 patching deadline for federal agencies. CVE 2026-20245. CVSS 7.8, EPSS 0.3%, 57th percentile, is an improper encoding vulnerability in Cisco Catalyst SDWAN Manager, allowing authenticated local attackers to execute arbitrary commands as root by supplying a crafted file. CVSS 8.8, EPSS 5.5%, 90th percentile, is an out-of-bounds read and write in Google Chrome V8, allowing remote code execution inside a sandbox via crafted HTML pages. CVSS 6.9, EPSS 22.5%, 96th percentile, is an incomplete comparison vulnerability in Arista Extensible Operating System. IOs affecting 7020R, 7280R/R2, and 7500R/R2 series products configured as tunnel endpoints. Arista will not release patches due to risk of breaking existing configurations, instead providing ACL-based mitigations, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: update Cisco Catalyst as DWAN Manager and Google Chrome immediately. For Arista EOS, apply ACL mitigations per vendor guidance, either upstream ACLs to allow only legitimate tunnel traffic or on-device ACLs to block malicious tunnel traffic. Federal agencies must comply by June 23. Source: The Hacker News. Path traversal flaw in AI dev platform Langflow exploited in attacks. CVE 2026-5027. Attackers are actively exploiting CVE 2026-5027. CVSS 8.8. EPSS 0%, 11th percentile, a high-severity path traversal vulnerability in Langflow. Open-source AI development platform with 149,000 GitHub stars. The flaw exists in the file upload functionality at the post/API/v2/files endpoint, which fails to sanitize the file name parameter, allowing attackers to write files to arbitrary locations using path traversal sequences. Langflow enables unauthenticated auto-login by default, meaning no credentials are required to reach the vulnerable endpoint. A single unauthenticated request is sufficient to obtain a valid session token and proceed with exploitation. Vuln check honeypots detected attackers dropping test files on vulnerable instances. Sensies identified roughly 7,000 publicly exposed Langflow instances. Tenable disclosed the vulnerability on March 27, 2026, after attempting to contact Langflow maintainers 3 times in January and February without response. The issue was fixed in Langflow base version 0.8.3 and Langflow version 1.9.0. Action: upgrade to Langflow version 1.10.0, released June 11, 2026, immediately. If running older versions, upgrade to at least 1.9.0. Disable unauthenticated auto-login. This is the 5th Langflow vulnerability exploited in 2026, including CVE 2026-33017, which is being weaponized by Iranian threat group Muddy Water. Sources: Bleeping Computer, The Hacker News. Next section, Patch Priority. Microsoft Windows. June 2026 Patch Tuesday addresses 206 vulnerabilities including 3 public 0 days, CVE 2026-45586, and critical remote code execution bugs. Note that 2 new unpatched 0 days, Rogue Planet and Great XML, were released after Patch Tuesday, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Microsoft Exchange Server. CVE 2026-42897 actively exploited cross-site scripting vulnerability. CIS a KEV due date was May 29. Install June 2026 patches immediately. Langflow. CVE 2026-5027 path traversal under active exploitation. Upgrade to version 1.10.0. Cisco Catalyst as DWAN Manager. CVE 2026-20245 actively exploited. CIS a KEV due June 23. Google Chrome. CVE 2026-11645 actively exploited V8 vulnerability. CIS a KEV due June 23. Next section, Vulnerability Disclosures. Microsoft patches record 206 flaws, including 3 0 days and critical RCE bugs. Microsoft's June 2026 Patch Tuesday is the largest on record with 206 security vulnerabilities addressed. Of these, 39 are rated critical and 167 are important. The breakdown includes 63 privilege escalation, 56 remote code execution, 30 information disclosure, 27 spoofing, 20 security feature bypass, 7 denial of service, and 3 tampering vulnerabilities. The patches also include 2 non-Microsoft CVEs and more than 350 Chromium flaws addressed in Microsoft Edge. 3 vulnerabilities were publicly disclosed at the time of release. CVE 2026-45586, CVSS 7.8, EPSS 0.1%, 30th percentile, is a Windows CTF-Mon privilege escalation with a public proof of concept called Green Plasma, released by Nightmare Eclipse last month. CVSS 7.5, EPSS 1.2%, 80th percentile, is an HTTP. SIS denial of service related to the HTTP2/bomb attack technique that can exhaust 64 GB RAM in 45 seconds. CVSS 6.8, EPSS 0.1%, 27th percentile, is a BitLocker bypass dubbed Bitscrig that grants full access to encrypted data with physical access. Two critical remote code execution vulnerabilities require immediate attention. CVSS 9.8 is a use-after-free in Windows kernel allowing RCE via specially crafted network traffic with system-level privileges and no user interaction. CVSS 9.8, EPSS 0.2%, 40th percentile, is an integer overflow in Windows HTTP. SIS. CVSS 9.8, EPSS 0.1%, 26th percentile, is a stack-based buffer overflow in Windows DHCP client, allowing unauthorized code execution over the network with no credentials or user action required, and 5 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: prioritize installation of June 2026 security updates. Focus first on internet-facing systems running HTTP, SIS, DHCP services, and systems processing untrusted network traffic. Test CVE 2026-45657 and CVE 2026-44815 patches on non-production systems before broad deployment due to potential network service impact. Source: The Hacker News. Ivanti, Fortinet, and SAP release patches for multiple critical vulnerabilities. Fortinet, Ivanti, and SAP release security updates addressing multiple critical vulnerabilities, allowing arbitrary code execution and information disclosure. Fortinet patch CVE 2026-25089, CVSS 9.1, EPSS 2.0%, 84th percentile, a command injection vulnerability in FortiSandbox, FortiSandbox Cloud, and FortiSandbox PA SWEB UI, allowing unauthenticated attackers to execute unauthorized commands via crafted HTTP requests. Affected versions: FortiSandbox 5.0.0 through 5.0.5, upgrade to 5.0.6, FortiSandbox 4.4.0 through 4.4.8, upgrade to 4.4.9, FortiSandbox Cloud 5.0.4 through 5.0.5, upgrade to 5.0.6, and FortiSandbox PA S5.0.4 through 5.0.5, upgrade to 5.0.6. Ivanti published fixes for 2 critical flaws in Ivanti Sentry, formerly Mobile Iron Sentry. CVSS 10.0, EPSS 0.2%, 44th percentile, is an OS command injection allowing remote unauthenticated users to achieve root-level RCE, and CVSS 9.9, EPSS 0.3%, 54th percentile, is an authentication bypass allowing remote unauthenticated attackers to create arbitrary administrative accounts. Both are fixed in versions R10, 5, 2 R10, 6, 2 and R10, 7, 1. SAP released 4 critical vulnerabilities in NetWeaver as a BAP platform, Commerce Cloud, and Data Hub. CVSS 9.9 is an XML signature wrapping vulnerability in SAML authentication. CVSS 9.8, EPSS 0%, 13th percentile, is a memory corruption vulnerability allowing unauthenticated RCE via crafted RFC requests. CVSS 9.1, EPSS 0%, 9th percentile, is a Spring security vulnerability, and CVSS 9.0, EPSS 0.1%, 27th percentile, is a directory traversal vulnerability in NetWeaver application server Java, and 6 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: upgrade FortiSandbox products to version 5.0.6 or 4.4.9 as appropriate. Upgrade Ivanti Sentry to R10, 5, 2 R10, 6, 2 or R10, 7, 1. Apply SAP security updates for all affected NetWeaver and Commerce Cloud systems. No evidence of active exploitation for these vulnerabilities yet. Source: The Hacker News. Next section: Ransomware and Extortion. Who runs the ransomware group The Gentleman? The Gentleman ransomware group has become the second most active by victim count, claiming at least 332 victims since mid-2025 and more than 240 in 2026 alone. According to Checkpoint Software Research, the group operates a ransomware-as-a-service model, offering affiliates an aggressive 90/10 revenue split. compared to the industry standard 80/20, accelerating growth by attracting experienced operators from competing programs. The group targets internet-facing devices, VPN, firewalls, as entry points, and encrypts entire networks within hours. Checkpoint research indicates the administrator and primary operator uses the nickname Zeta-88 on Russian-language cybercrime forums and was previously known as Hastelamwert. Breach of the group's backend infrastructure revealed that Hastelamwert/Zeta-88 assembles the Locker and Raw S panel, manages payments, and receives 10% of all ransoms. Intelligence firm Intel 471 shows Hastelamwert registered on almost a dozen cybercrime forums between 2019 and present, including Exploit, Breach Forums, Ramp v2, BHF, Raid Forums, and Nulled. Both Hastelamwert and Zeta-88 registered from internet addresses in Izhevsk, Russia, capital of Udmurt Republic. Hastelamwert registered on Raid Forums in 2020 using the email hastelamwert1488@protonmail.com. 1488 is a numeric symbol associated with white supremacy. Threat intelligence firm Constella Intelligence reports that the Hastelamwert Telegram ID is connected to the Russian phone number 79,127,650,004, which is assigned to Alexander Andreevich Yapiev, a 36-year-old from Izhevsk, according to records from hacked Russian government databases. Action: the Gentleman Group's rapid growth and aggressive affiliate recruitment make it a significant threat. Monitor for internet-facing device compromises, particularly VPN and firewall appliances. The group's fast encryption timeline, hours not days, requires rapid detection and response capabilities. Source: Krebs on Security. Chelan County enters third week of disruptions with no recovery timeline. Chelan County, Washington entered its third week of system-wide disruptions on June 8, following a malware incident discovered over Memorial Day weekend. County officials have not provided a timeline for restoring affected systems. The county became aware of malware affecting the county network over the Memorial Day weekend. Source: Data breaches. Net. Next section: Business and infrastructure threats. Infostealers turn millions of devices into credential theft machines. More than 11.1 million devices were infected with infostealers in 2025, with more than 3.3 billion credentials, browser artifacts, session information, and other identity data now circulating in illicit marketplaces, according to Flashpoint Research. Infostealers have become the primary source of stolen credentials for attackers, providing authorized access to valuable data within target networks. More than 30 unique infostealer strains are active, available via malware as a service for as little as $60 per month. During 2025, the most successful stealers were Luma, Acard, Radamanthes, Vidar, and SteelC. During the first 2 months of 2026, Vidar rose from 4th place to dominate with more than 73% of all infected hosts, while Luma dropped from number 1 in 2025 to just 1.1%. Stealers target credentials, website passwords, enterprise VPN/RDP/VNC, webmail, SaaS logins, cloud platform credentials, email accounts, password manager stores, autofill data, browser cookies, active session tokens, cloud/SaaS session artifacts, cryptocurrency wallet information, seeds, private keys, and credit card data. Stealers also gather system metadata, OS version, hardware, IP address, to provide context alongside stolen identity data. The most common delivery method is social engineering attacks against users with desktops or laptops, with statistical near certainty of success somewhere in the target environment. Action: deploy endpoint detection for infostealer behavior patterns. Monitor for unusual outbound connections to known command and control infrastructure. Implement session token rotation and enforce short-lived credentials. Use hardware-based MFA, multi-factor authentication, where possible to limit value of stolen passwords. Monitor dark web marketplaces for company credential exposure. Source: Security Week. Deceptive installers. How fake apps target Mac OS. Deceptive installers and weaponized disk images have become the dominant delivery mechanism for Mac OS malware. In 2025, over 65% of newly reported Mac OS malware was classified as infostealers, focused on credential and data theft. The vast majority of Mac OS infostealers do not establish persistence mechanisms like launch agents or launch daemons. Instead, they operate as smash-and-grab attacks that land on the machine, harvest saved passwords, browser cookies, authentication tokens, and cryptocurrency wallets, then exfiltrate the data to C2 servers before detection. The infection chain typically starts with search engine optimization, SEO, poisoning to hijack search results, or compromised links on torrent networks and cracked software forums. Attackers prefer DMG disk images over PKG packages because packages require formal developer signing and face rigid Mac OS security scrutiny, while disk images provide a path of least resistance. When users double-click a DMG, Mac OS mounts it as a virtual drive in /volumes, isolated from system files. Attackers defeat Gatekeeper, Apple's digital signing verification, through social engineering rather than code exploits, tricking users into manually overriding security controls. Action: educate Mac OS users about the risk of downloading software from unofficial sources. Enforce Gatekeeper policies and do not allow users to override security warnings. Monitor for unusual credential access patterns and rapid data exfiltration. Deploy EDR solutions capable of detecting infostular behavior on Mac OS endpoints. Source: Huntress blog. Next section, General Security News. GitHub to disable NPM install scripts by default to stop supply chain attacks. GitHub announced breaking changes coming to NPM version 12. Scheduled for release next month, that will disable install scripts by default to combat software supply chain threats. Install time lifecycle scripts are the single largest code execution surface in the NPM ecosystem because NPM install runs scripts from every transitive dependency, allowing a single compromised package anywhere in the dependency tree to run arbitrary code on developer machines or CI runners. The changes require explicit user approval before code execution during NPM install instead of trusting dependencies by default. Specific changes: NPM install will no longer execute pre-install, install, or post-install scripts from dependencies unless explicitly allowed. NPM install will no longer resolve Git dependencies, direct or transitive, unless explicitly allowed via allowgit. NPM install will no longer resolve dependencies from remote URLs, HTTPS tarballs, unless explicitly allowed via allowremote. Native node JIP builds are also blocked by default because NPM runs an implicit node JIP rebuild even without an explicit install script. Defaulting allowgit to none closes a code execution path where a Git dependencies. npmrc configuration file could override the Git executable, even with ignore scripts. Action: upgrade to npm 11.16.0 or newer and test with warnings enabled. Run npm approve scripts allow script spending to review which packages have scripts, approve trusted ones, and commit the updated package. JSON: only approved scripts will run after upgrading to npm 12. This change will break CI/CD pipelines and developer workflows that rely on automatic script execution, so testing is critical before the July release. Source: The Hacker News. Microsoft fixes BitLocker recovery bug on Windows Server 2025. Microsoft resolved a known issue causing some Windows Server 2025 devices to boot into BitLocker recovery after installing the April 2026 security update. The issue only affects devices with an unrecommended BitLocker group policy configuration where all the following conditions are met. BitLocker is enabled on the OS drive. The group policy, configure TPM platform validation profile for native UEFI firmware configurations, is configured with PCR7 included, or the equivalent registry key is set manually. System information reports that the secure boot state PCR7 binding is not possible. The Windows UEFI CA 2023 certificate is present in the device's secure boot signature database, making it eligible for the 2023 signed Windows Boot Manager. And the device is not already running the 2023 signed Windows Boot Manager. A fix is included in the KB 5,094,125, Windows Server 2025, and KB 5,093,998, Windows 11.23H2, cumulative updates released during June Patch Tuesday. To prevent the unexpected BitLocker recovery key prompt, devices with incompatible group policy configurations are prevented from installing the 2023 signed Windows Boot Manager. Event ID 1032 appears in the system event log when this occurs. Action: install June 2026 cumulative updates KB 5,094,125, Server 2025, or KB 5,093,998, Windows 11.23H2. For systems that cannot immediately deploy June updates, remove the incompatible group policy configuration before installing KB 5,082,063 and later updates, or apply a known issue rollback to prevent automatic switch to the 2023 Boot Manager. Source: Bleeping Computer. Microsoft. Some Windows PCs fail to install latest monthly updates. Microsoft warned that a small percentage of Windows 10, versions 22H2 and 21H2, and Windows 11, version 23H2, Devices upgraded to Windows 11 version 24H2 or 25H2 may fail to install the latest cumulative update. Affected users see 0x80,073,712 or 0x800F0993 errors when trying to install June 2026 cumulative updates. Windows Update log files show error 0x800F0993, PSFX e-rebase hydration candidates missing, or 0x80,073,712. Error SXS component store corrupt. Microsoft says a fix will roll out automatically to unmanaged enterprise devices and personal PCs, Home Edition, following a system restart, with no new devices affected starting May 19, 2026. For affected devices already upgraded to Windows 11 24H2 or 25H2, users should remove the affected package by running dism/online/remove package name. Package for rollup fix ~31BF 3856. Add 364E35 AMD 64 26100.1742.1.10 in an elevated command prompt. If this does not fix the issue, perform a Windows 11 in-place upgrade. Action: monitor for automatic fix deployment via restart on unmanaged systems. For managed systems experiencing the issue, run the dism command to remove the problematic package or perform an in-place upgrade. Source: Bleeping Computer. Next section, Trends and Context. The combination of two unpatched Windows 0 days released hours after a record-breaking patch Tuesday demonstrates the escalating tension between Microsoft and security researchers over vulnerability disclosure. The researcher Nightmare Eclipse has now released 7 zero-day exploits: Blue Hammer, Red Sun, Undefend, Green Plasma, Yellow Key, Rogue Planet, and Great XML, after expressing discontent with Microsoft's vulnerability disclosure process. Meanwhile, the surge in infostealer infections, 11.1 million devices in 2025, and the active exploitation of AI development platforms like Langflow highlight how attackers are shifting focus from traditional exploitation to credential theft and supply chain compromise as more efficient attack paths. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech, stay patched, stay vigilant.